And funding expanded research programs? With conditions, Nathan clarified. I want you as our conservation director. Your photographs, your knowledge, they're what made me see things differently. Alara studied him carefully. Why are you really doing this, Nathan? He reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching hers. Because you showed me that true wealth isn't what I've been accumulating. It's what we protect and preserve. The months that followed transformed both their lives. Nathan divided his time between Seattle and Blackwater, finding unexpected fulfillment in applying his business acumen to conservation challenges. The sanctuary flourished under their joint vision, a model of how technology and environmental protection could coexist. Alara's photography gained prominence through Quantum's platforms, reaching audiences who had never considered wildlife conservation relevant to their lives. Her images, now including occasional candid shots of a certain tech CEO awkwardly navigating forest trails, told stories of ecological interconnection and redemptive purpose. On a crisp autumn evening, 1 year after the helicopter crash, they stood together on the ridge where they had first watched eagles soar. I received an offer today, Alara said, leaning against Nathan's shoulder. National Geographic wants to feature our conservation model. Our model, Nathan repeated, savoring the word. A year ago, I couldn't see past quarterly reports. And I couldn't see past my prejudice against corporate America, she admitted with a smile. Nathan turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. The man who had once measured value solely in billions now found infinite worth in the warmth of her touch, the passion in her convictions, and the future they were building together. I built an empire alone, he said softly, but you showed me how to build a life that matters. As the sun set over the sanctuary they'd saved together, Nathan and Alara sealed their partnership with a kiss that promised a future neither had imagined possible. One where success was measured not by fortune's accumulation, but by its echo in lives touched and wilderness preserved. Their story was just beginning, but already it had transformed them both. The tech titan who discovered his humanity, and the photographer who expanded her vision to include unexpected allies. Together they had redefined what it meant to build something truly valuable. Golden eagles nest in the ridge above us. Today's lighting is perfect, she replied, packing her gear. You're welcome to join me if sitting here fuming becomes tedious. To his own surprise, Nathan found himself accepting the invitation. Borrowing waterproof gear that fit him poorly, he followed Alara along a narrow trail, his designer watch absurdly out of place against the borrowed canvas jacket. Slow down, she whispered suddenly, crouching low. Look there. Nathan followed her gaze to where a mother bear and 2 cubs foraged among fallen logs. The intimacy of witnessing their natural behavior, unaware of human presence, struck him unexpectedly. Alara's camera clicked softly as she captured the scene. Her expression held such focused passion that Nathan found himself watching her rather than the wildlife. This is why the sanctuary matters, she explained, later as they shared a thermos of tea on a rocky outcrop. These species are losing habitat at unprecedented rates. Development creates jobs, Nathan countered, though his argument lacked its usual conviction. At what cost? Alara challenged. Once it's gone forever. As the day progressed, Nathan observed Alara in her element, patient, knowledgeable, and deeply connected to her surroundings. She spoke about the sanctuary's financial struggles, her voice animated with genuine concern rather than self-interest. Why do you care so much? He asked as they hiked back toward the cabin, genuine curiosity replacing his earlier condescension. Alara paused, considering the question seriously. Because someone has to, she finally answered. Because seeing beauty disappear without fighting for it feels like a betrayal. That evening, as the pilot rested, Nathan examined Alara's published work spread across her small desk. The photographs were breathtaking, intimate portraits of endangered species that somehow captured both their wildness and vulnerability. You're very talented, he admitted. Thank you, she replied, the first hint of warmth entering her voice. It's not about talent, though. It's about patience and presence. Something I'm not particularly known for, Nathan acknowledged with unexpected honesty. Alara's smile transformed her face. Yet here you are, stranded in a cabin with no meetings or acquisitions to distract you. The universe has a strange sense of humor. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Nathan laughed genuinely. Something was shifting within him. a subtle thawing of defenses that had been reinforced over years of corporate battles and emotional solitude. As night settled around the cabin once more, neither was entirely aware of how the space between them had begun to change. The rescue team arrived at first light, a sleek corporate helicopter dispatched by Quantum Solutions' security team. Nathan's world was reclaiming him with efficient, impersonal precision. "My team will compensate you for your assistance," Nathan told Alara stiffly as he prepared to leave, reverting to the language of transaction that governed his life. Alara's expression cooled. "Not everything has a price tag, Mr. Reed." Their parting was awkward, the strange intimacy of the past 48 hours collapsing under the weight of reality. Nathan hesitated before boarding, looking back at the small cabin and the woman standing before it, somehow appearing more substantial than the corporate machine awaiting him. "Thank you," he managed, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. Back in Seattle, Nathan was immediately engulfed by the crisis his absence had precipitated. Board members demanded explanations, the Nexus integration team required decisions, and his executive assistant had rescheduled 17 critical meetings into an impossible timeline. Yet as he moved through the familiar choreography of corporate power, Nathan found himself distracted by memories of the forest, the eagles soaring against cloud-streaked skies, the quiet concentration on Alara's face as she photographed a fox den, the simple pleasure of tea drunk from mismatched mugs. During a development strategy meeting, Nathan found himself staring at architectural renderings for Blackwater luxury retreats on the UE, very project threatening the sanctuary Alara had spoken about so passionately. "We're fast-tracking the environmental approvals," his development director was saying. "The sanctuary's financial troubles give us leverage. We should be breaking ground within 6 months." Nathan felt something unfamiliar twist inside him. "Let's pause on Blackwater," he said suddenly. The room fell silent. "Sir?" his director questioned, bewildered. "I want a complete reassessment, full environmental impact, alternative locations, everything," Nathan continued, surprising himself nearly as much as his team. Later that evening, alone in his penthouse, Nathan found himself researching Alara Chen's work. Her latest photography series had won critical acclaim but struggled commercially. The Blackwater Wildlife Sanctuary's fundraising campaign showed modest donations, but remained far short of their goal. On impulse, Nathan made a substantial anonymous donation to the sanctuary. It wasn't enough to save it permanently, but it would buy time. 3 days later, a package arrived at his office. A framed photograph of the eagle pair he had seen with Alara, accompanied by a simple note, "I know it was you." "Why?" Nathan stared at the image, feeling strangely exposed. He picked up his phone and dialed the number she'd included. "I'm not sure," he admitted when she answered. "Maybe I wanted to remember something real." Their conversation lasted hours, spanning topics from conservation strategies to personal histories. Nathan found himself revealing things he rarely discussed. His childhood in a struggling single-parent household, the relentless drive that had propelled him to success but left little room for connection. Alara listened without judgment, offering insights rather than sympathy. "You built an empire to prove your worth," she observed. "What would you build if you already knew you were worthy?" The question lingered with Nathan long after they ended the call. For the first time in decades, he began questioning the architecture of his life, the success he'd achieved and the emptiness that had accompanied it. Meanwhile, Alara found herself increasingly drawn to the complexity beneath Nathan's corporate facade. Their worlds couldn't be more different, yet something genuine was forming between them, a connection neither had anticipated. The Quantum Solutions board meeting fell silent as Nathan finished his presentation. The plan he'd outlined was unprecedented, establishing a conservation technology division that would partner with wildlife sanctuaries nationwide, beginning with Blackwater. "Instead of developing the land, we'll develop technology to protect it," he concluded. "Sustainable monitoring systems, non-invasive research tools, public education platforms, all built on our existing AI framework." "This is unexpected," the chairwoman stated carefully. "What's the projected ROI?" Nathan smiled. "Beyond financial returns, which my analysis shows will be substantial long-term, we're positioning Quantum as a leader in conservation technology. The PR alone is valuable, but more importantly, it's the right thing to do." 2 hours later, having secured conditional approval, Nathan called Alara. "Can we meet?" he asked. "I have something to show you." They met at a small cafe midway between Seattle and the sanctuary, neutral territory between their worlds. Alara arrived with wind-blown hair and mud-spattered boots, looking both out of place and entirely authentic among the polished urban clientele. Nathan slid a folder across the table. "Quantum's new conservation technology initiative. We're starting with Blackwater." Alara reviewed the documents with growing astonishment. "You're saving the sanctuary?" Nathan Reed stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse, watching Seattle's skyline flicker in the evening rain. At 42, he had everything he'd ever thought he wanted. Quantum Solutions was valued at $11 billion. His innovative AI systems were revolutionizing healthcare worldwide, and his name appeared regularly in tech magazines as the next visionary. Yet the reflection staring back at him from the glass looked hollow-eyed and restless. "The board approved the Nexus acquisition," his assistant Maya reported through the intercom. "The press release goes out tomorrow morning." "Thank you," Nathan replied, his voice flat despite securing the deal he'd pursued for months. He loosened his tie, walking past the sleek furniture that had been selected by his interior designer. Nothing in the penthouse truly reflected him. It was all for show, all part of the image of success. Even the painting on the wall worth millions meant nothing to him beyond its investment value. His phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa, his ex-wife. "Congratulations on Nexus, I knew you'd get it eventually." It wasn't warm. It was acknowledgement between two people who had once shared a life before his work consumed everything. Nathan poured himself a whiskey neat. Tomorrow would bring another 18-hour workday, another acquisition target, another step toward what exactly? The question had begun haunting him lately. 200 miles away, Alara Chen wiped mud from her camera lens as twilight settled over the Olympic Mountains. Her small cabin, rented for 6 months to complete her photographic project, was simple but cozy, a far cry from her cramped apartment in Portland. "Almost got you," she whispered as a rare mountain fox darted behind the trees before she could capture its image. At 36, Alara had built a modest reputation documenting endangered species across the Pacific Northwest. Her photographs weren't just beautiful. They told stories that moved people to care about conservation. Her latest book had received critical acclaim but modest sales, sufficient to fund this expedition barely. Inside her cabin, she uploaded the day's images to her laptop. Photos of eagle nests, deer at dawn, and the delicate ecosystem that surrounded the Blackwater Wildlife Sanctuary filled her screen. "Perfect," she murmured, selecting one particularly striking image of a hummingbird mid-flight, wings creating an ethereal blur around its tiny body. A notification popped up on her phone, a news alert about Quantum Solutions acquiring Nexus Technologies. Her stomach tightened. Nexus had subsidiaries in land development, including Horizon Properties, which had been eyeing the sanctuary's land for luxury eco-resorts. Alara tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear, concern creasing her brow. The sanctuary was already struggling for funding. Development pressure would only make things worse. She made a simple dinner of pasta and vegetables, listening to the gentle patter of rain on the cabin's roof. Unlike Nathan Reed in his sterile penthouse, everything in Alara's temporary home reflected her. Field guides stacked beside photography books, handmade mugs from local artisans, and walls adorned with her own photographs. Neither knew that in less than 24 hours, their separate worlds would collide in a way that would challenge everything they thought they understood about success, purpose, and connection. The helicopter shuddered violently as rain lashed against the windshield. Nathan gripped the leather seat, watching the pilot's increasingly tense movements. "Mr. Reed, we've got a mechanical issue." "I need to set down," the pilot announced, voice tight with controlled panic. Nathan nodded, maintaining his composure despite the aircraft's alarming descent. He'd insisted on personally inspecting a potential development site near Olympic National Park, refusing to postpone despite the weather warnings. Now, as treetops appeared dangerously close beneath them, his stubbornness seemed foolish. The impact came suddenly, a jarring crash followed by the screech of metal. Nathan's head struck something hard, and darkness edged his vision before he lost consciousness. The sound of the crash echoed through the forest, startling Alara as she photographed a family of deer. She immediately packed her equipment and followed the sound, rain soaking through her weatherproof jacket as she navigated the dense undergrowth. When she discovered the downed helicopter, smoke rising from its engine, instinct took over. The pilot was conscious but injured, and in the passenger seat a man in an expensive suit lay slumped forward, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Can you walk?" she asked the pilot after helping him out. "Yes, but he's out cold," he replied, gesturing to Nathan. Together they managed to extract Nathan from the wreckage. The pilot used a satellite phone to call for rescue, but the storm was intensifying. "They can't get a helicopter in until morning," he informed Ilara grimly. "My cabin's 2 miles east," she decided. "We can shelter there." The journey was arduous. Nathan regained partial consciousness, stumbling between them, occasionally mumbling about the Nexus deal and board expectations. His expensive Italian shoes slipped repeatedly on the muddy trail. By the time they reached Ilara's cabin, darkness had fallen completely. Nathan collapsed onto her sofa while she attended to the pilot's injuries. "You're Ilara Chen," the pilot realized, noticing her photography on the walls. "My daughter has your book." Ilara smiled briefly before turning her attention to Nathan, who was now fully conscious and examining his surroundings with obvious disdain. "Where exactly am I?" he demanded, wincing as she cleaned his head wound. "Blackwater Forest, about 30 miles from nowhere," she replied coolly. "You're welcome, by the way." Recognition flickered in his eyes as he noticed her camera equipment. "You're a photographer." "Wildlife conservation photographer," she corrected. "Currently documenting the species that your development company seems intent on displacing." Nathan's expression hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about." Horizon Properties, subsidiary of Nexus Technologies, recently acquired by Quantum Solutions, which would be you, Nathan Reed, she stated flatly. "I do my research when someone threatens places I care about." Nathan attempted to stand but swayed dizzily. "I need to make some calls." "There's no cell service here and the satellite connection is down in the storm," Ilara explained, pushing him gently back onto the sofa. "You're stuck with us ordinary mortals until morning, Mr. Reed." As the night progressed, Nathan watched Ilara move efficiently around the small space, preparing a simple meal and tending to their needs without complaint. Despite his throbbing head and ruined suit, he found himself observing the easy way she interacted with the pilot, discussing flight patterns and wildlife migration routes. For the first time in years, Nathan Reed found himself in a situation he couldn't control with money or power. Here, in this simple cabin with this surprisingly informed woman, he was just another person in need of help. A novel and distinctly uncomfortable position for a man accustomed to commanding rooms and directing outcomes. Outside, the storm intensified, sealing them together until morning's light. Dawn broke with reluctant clarity, pale light filtering through the cabin windows. Nathan awoke disoriented, his neck stiff from sleeping upright. The events of the previous day came rushing back. The crash, the forest, the cabin. Ilara was already awake, speaking quietly with the pilot by the wood stove. She offered Nathan a steaming mug of coffee without ceremony. Rescue team radioed. "The weather's still causing problems," she informed him. "Earliest extraction will be tomorrow morning." Nathan's frustration was palpable. "That's unacceptable. I have meetings, which won't happen whether you're angry about it or not," Ilara interjected calmly. "Your pilot needs medical attention, but he's stable. You should rest too." Throughout the day, Nathan paced the small cabin, making futile attempts to find signal on his phone. Meanwhile, Ilara prepared to venture out for her daily photography session. "You're going out there? Now?" he questioned incredulously.